Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to be a member of our community, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Community to Apply. All right, so this is a very special episode. I am welcoming back to the show Bill Fotsch. It's been a while since you've been on last. He's the founder of Economic Engagement, and today we have a big topic. Lots taken place since Bill was last on the show, and we definitely want to get his views on what's going on with employee engagement. We're going to talk about economic engagement and really the work he's doing over there. And overall, the title of today's episode, Purpose Not Perks. You can't buy employee engagement. So first off, hey, Bill, I just want to say welcome back to the show. Great to have you back on.
Thank you very much. And Adam, you didn't ask me to say this, but I've been part of the Mission Matters community. And I would tell all your listeners that if you're not, you should be. So enough of that.
Well, thank you for that, of course. And never, I'm not, for my viewers and listeners, they know I'm not shy in a plug. So thank you for that one. And I'm not scared to ask for one. But hey, Bill, so you already know, the drill here. We'll get this episode started the way that we start them all, with what we love to call our Mission Matters Minute. So, Bill, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Bill, what mission matters to you?
As I've mentioned to you previously, Adam, I want to change the world. And that sounds kind of grand and glorious, but I'm so tired of listening to folks talk about business is the problem. Strikes me, business is one of the few solutions we have. Now, admittedly, business poorly run is a problem. But now if you add to changing the world, and in businesses, if the business partners with their employees to serve customers profitably, the world changes. And I'd like to see every company understand the profitability of moving in that direction and embrace that.
It's great. Love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs and executives on here to share, why they do what they do, how they're doing it, and really what we can learn from that so that we all grow together. So again, great having you back on. And Bill, I don't want to assume that maybe some of our newer listeners or viewers maybe caught some of our previous work. So let's go back a bit here and maybe let us know how you got started in this path to economic engagement. Like, how did all this start for you?
In a way, it was not by any design. I was part of corporate America working at a division of Tenneco. I was vice president of business development, so I'm the deals guy.
Yeah.
Right? HBS grad, engineering, all that kind of good stuff. I ended up doing a joint venture with a really novel company. That company is Springfield Remanufacturing Company, President Jack Stack. They were running their company so completely odd and different, and were wildly successful. I mean, it was just like not even close.
Yeah.
And about 3 years later, I got into a bass boat by invitation of Jack. And for 3 days, he'd tell us we caught a lot of fish. It's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true. But we talked about a variety of things, and we, in effect, brought to life a professional service organization, which in those days was called Great Game Coaching. And the notion was to take the same sort of powerful drivers of a business that had been so well practiced at SRC and share that. One of the things that happened in sharing that, though, is I both shared information, but I learned along the way. And part of what happened is the reason we've moved from open book management or great game of business, which are kind of known terms, to something called economic engagement is captured in an article that John Case and I wrote in Inc. And it was called Open Book 2.0. It's called economic engagement. And so it builds on that foundation, but it puts more emphasis on the customer because the customer defines the economics.
Yeah.
And it puts more emphasis on the drivers of the financials rather than the financials themselves. But that the starting point was 30 years ago with Jack.
Yeah. Maybe let's, if I can have you do like just a high level overview of kind of juxtaposing the, let's just say the 1.0 over to the 2.0, just to kind of give the audience a little bit of that hybrid, if you will.
It's a great question. Not that that's kind of what you do, so I guess that's no surprise. It all came from learning by doing. And in particular, the first step of that was when I was working with the Zambian Consolidated Copper Mine in Zambia, Africa. 50,000 miners, how do you get them all to think like partners and owners in the business? It was not intuitively obvious. If we would have shared financials with those folks, it just wouldn't have flown.
For sure.
It wouldn't make any sense. Okay. But fortunately, the economics of a mine are really simple. If you get more throughput, because most of the costs are fixed, your cost per ton goes down, your profitability and cash go up. So that was the start of, wait a minute, it's really the underlying economics. The second step of this was in 2008. Good bit down the road. 2008, as you may remember, was right at the end was the financial crisis.
Yeah.
All of the clients I worked with had the same problem, not enough revenue, because the economy tanked. You go into the open book management book, it doesn't really say anything about customers. We had to be all about customers. And frankly, classic marketing wasn't working either. And the reason I think was the case was everybody was throwing more marketing dollars out. So with more and more marketing dollars chasing fewer and fewer revenue dollars, the ratio kind of went to the devil. It was just at that time that Fred Reicheld's net promoter score was starting to come out. I knew Fred from my years at Bain and Company. And so we started playing with that. But even that wasn't the solution. But what happened was when we actually spoke with customers to ask why the number, why they rate it, one of the darndest things happened. All of a sudden, repeat and referral revenue started going up.
Wow.
And let me tell you, my compensation was tied right to the results of my employees. My compensation tied right to my customers' results. So I'm more than casually involved and interested in them improving. So it was fundamentally, I mean, there's lots of other things that we keep learning over time. We may get into some of the research we've done more recently, but as it relates specifically to Open Book 1.0 and 2.0, those two things. Look at drivers, because you don't have to educate people on the drivers. They're very familiar with it. The guys all knew additional throughput. And when it came to customers, it's like, wait a minute, that's front and center. You want to be all over and close to customers. And one of the things that happens if you do that, you get more repeat and referral revenue. So it's a win-win. That's really where it came from.
Yeah. And so as we're, tail end of the pandemic, we're, in this new paradigm, a lot of shifts are going on, what in both, obviously the workplace, of course, home, like people are reimagining, rethinking about the way that people work. And this idea that, employees want really customized work experiences, and they don't want to all be on that exact same maybe track or path that we once had designed that was, I don't know, a relic maybe of industrial revolution. So thinking kind of along those lines, like what should employers be thinking about right now in today's marketplace?
It's interesting that you track back to the pandemic. I'm going to go off topic just a little bit and say, that the number of innovations that happened during World War II, in medicine in particular, it was explosive because it was like this unreal time, and we needed advancements. Now I'm going to take you right back to the pandemic. The pandemic was an unreal time. I remember a remodeling company that I was working with at that time. They're located in Greater Boston, Adams Beasley. You can't do better in Greater Boston than Adams Beasley. The upshot was, in a matter of like a month, They went from rolling around having another record year
Yeah.
to all their projects were shut down.
Wow.
I mean, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that they did, they run the business very conservatively.
Mm-hmm.
So unlike most companies, they didn't immediately start laying people off.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, when employers want to have the loyalty of their employees,
Mm-hmm.
and then race to lay them off when there's a challenge,
Yeah.
I mean, of course they're not going to have loyalty.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's really smart that, and other organizations, I'm just going to use Adams Beasley as an example here.
Yeah.
One of the things that was really smart that they did is, one, they shared the specifics of the realities, including like how much cash we got left, how long can we survive. But again, they had been running the business fairly conservatively.
Mm-hmm.
And then they turned to all of their employees and said, about 40 employees, so not a large company, and said, what can you do productively given the circumstances? You know, inside of a week, they got 100 ideas. Seriously, 100 ideas. Okay.
Wow.
Which was phenomenal. And what all kinds of things, like if you're familiar with Stephen Covey's, you're sawing or you're sharpening the saw. Well, they couldn't saw, right? Because they couldn't be on the jobs.
Yeah.
But a number of the ideas were ways they could sharpen the saw. All kinds of ideas. And frankly, the message came out. I mean, how do you deal with 100 different ideas?
Right.
And the answers, and Eric and Angus, who are the two founders, said, okay, here's the deal, guys. Great that we got all those ideas. If it costs less than $1,000, don't ask for permission, just do it. Just go, okay? Well, what company says that?
Right.
Adams Beasley does. Now, admittedly, they already had a strong culture for some period of time, but it went into the afterburners kicked on. Okay? The different ideas they came up with were phenomenal. I'll tell you another thing that was phenomenal that happened. They reached out to all of their customers explaining that they couldn't go on to the project, so the projects were being delayed. Several of their customers sent a message back saying, you just keep invoicing us the same amount that you always did. We really love what you're doing there. The notion you're not laying me off, that is incredible.
Wow.
Okay? Well, I mean, that doesn't happen.
No, that does not happen.
But it did. What I mean by that is there are a few kind of lessons learned on that. One, frankly, Southwest Airlines had been doing this for years. It pains me to see what's going on at Southwest right now. Okay, that is not the Southwest I worked with 15 years ago. But nonetheless, that notion of always being conservative, always having money set aside for a rainy day. So what does Southwest do? Whenever the market tanks, and it always does, and all of the other airlines are laying people off, they're opening up in new markets. That's how they're using their folks. So, I mean, there's a reason that for 50 years, and admittedly, I was biased because I invested in Southwest, not very much, a few $1,000. 40 years ago was a lot of money for me, I assure you. But I'd watch it go up and then split and go up again and split. And it was nothing more than they harnessed, better than most, the hearts and minds of their employees. Just like Adam Beasley did in the height of the pandemic. They had employees from other firms saying, look, I know you're really, you're undoubtedly not hiring. Please consider me in the future. One of the advantages this is so many companies, frankly, are not very well run. They treat their employees like hired hands, and then they're astonished that the employees respond like hired hands. I mean, it's crazy. I'm telling you, Adams Beasley, and I use them as an example, right? There are many other companies, not enough, but many other companies that get it.
Yeah.
That see that they can accomplish the mission, which inevitably is serving customers profitably. I mean, what company do you know whose mission is not serving customers profitably?
Yeah.
If you do that and you harness the hearts and minds of all of your employees to drive that, then take the lessons learned one more time at the pandemic. The other thing that we learned is we could change more rapidly. That's a big deal. People talk about being agile. Most of them have no idea of agile. Again, my buddies at Adams Beasley, they respond to stuff like you can't even believe. And it's all about checking with Eric and Angus. Because they know what the goals of the company are and what they can do. And then they just do it. So I actually think the pandemic was a unique opportunity that most folks viewed as a threat, but in fact, it was an opportunity to accelerate change. And there is an article, it's an HBR article that we wrote along those lines. The title of the article is How to Avoid Ever Having a Layoff. And the footnote is, and you'll make more money. Which, tends not to be a bad thing. I hope I addressed your question.
Absolutely, Bill. And some of those things that you're mentioning, and obviously this is your world, so you live in it day in and day out, but these aren't just your opinions, especially, there's been some other research and things that have come out by Gallup about employee engagement and things like that. Maybe share some of that with us and our viewers, just so they have a little bit of context that this isn't just your opinion. Like there's a lot of things that are backing this up.
I really appreciate your asking that, Adam. It has been my opinion for 25 years.
Yep.
And I'd sell based on success stories. That's not research. Okay. That's pitching. Okay. And I thought there was, legitimacy to what we were doing. But I really need to give my alma mater, Harvard Business School, a fair amount of credit, and in particular, Professor Dennis Campbell. But by the way, when you're working with Harvard Business School, you can throw away your stopwatch. You will not need it. Okay? God love them, but that's true. Okay. But maybe that's part of the price you pay for a certain amount of academic rigor.
Right.
And so the dean introduced me to Dennis. I had Dennis visit a number of companies that were clients. And it was about a year later, Dennis asked me, what's your end game, Bill? And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, I mean, you're in your 60s. What do you want to accomplish? And I told him the same thing that I mentioned to you at the outset. I said, I want to change the world. I want to show that business is this awesome, powerful force for good. And most folks that are criticizing it wouldn't know how to start up a business if it bit them.
Yeah.
Well, with that being the case, he said, are you serious? And I said, do I sound serious? And he said, well, then I'm going to tell you something you're probably not going to want to hear, but maybe you need to hear. I said, fire away, Dennis. He said, Bill, Copernicus changed the world. Everybody knew that the Earth was the center of the world, the center of the universe, and everything rotated around the Earth. Everybody knew that, okay? He didn't do it with a winning smile or a variety of stories. He did it with data. If you're going to change the world, you need to do it with data, with research to prove the point. And I said, damn, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And part of the problem, people use the term research very loosely. If you have a position and you're trying to support it with information you're gathering, that's not research. That's marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. Research is testing a hypothesis to see if it's true.
Mhm.
Well, so we set out to test the hypothesis that partnering with employees to serve customers more profitably
Mm.
was in fact more or less profitable. So
Mhm.
we had to come up with a way to measure what in those days we called what today we call economic engagement.
Mhm.
And there were 5 pillars. It was customer engagement, it was economic understanding, it was transparency, it was performance-based compensation, and it was employee participation. Those were the
Mhm.
5. And then we had 3 questions for every one of those 5 drivers. So a total of 15 questions.
Mhm.
And then we started fielding the research.
Yeah.
At this stage, we've done 8 waves of 50 to 150 companies.
Mm.
We gather this data, their answers to those questions, and then we look at their financial performance.
Mhm.
The first one we did was with credit unions. The thing that has been astonishing is the consistency of the results.
Mhm.
That is, if you're in the top quartile of economic engagement as we measure it,
Yes.
then you will be twice as profitable, twice the level of profit growth as the peer group, the average. And the peer group is going to be more than twice the
Mm.
profit growth of the bottom quartile. Well, when you see that once, it's like interesting. When you
Mhm.
see it 8 times,
Yeah.
it starts becoming statistically significant. Well, no, I want on that side. Now that really, I didn't say anything about employee engagement. I talked
For
about
sure.
engagement right there. Okay. The point that I want to make is now I want to turn to probably the industry leader in
Mm.
employee engagement is Gallup. There are good places to work, and there are a number of folks that quote measure employee engagement.
Yeah.
Gallup started doing that 30 years ago, and they told us, based on the research that William Kahn, who coined the phrase
Mm.
employee engagement, that only less than a third of employees were
Mm.
engaged in work, and everybody was appalled, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's so terrible. And it is.
Because that
Okay.
seems pretty low. That's low.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe I should do this rhetorically, Adam. Now we've spent billions of dollars, all kinds of experts, all this stuff going on, and now it's 30 years later. What percentage of employees are now engaged, or
Yeah.
which are not engaged? Either way, you want to answer it either way.
Yeah.
What do you think we've gotten to?
Same.
It is. It's like you're exactly correct. And the thing that struck me
Mm.
is I'd watch employees light up.
Mm.
But when you look at, for instance, the G-12, the 12 questions that Gallup asked employees,
Mhm.
it fundamentally focuses on what can we do for the employees.
Yeah.
We never asked that question, never once, because we were always focused on improving the business results, which inevitably meant either better serving customers
Mhm.
or doing it more profitably, because we
Mhm.
had to make money to be successful. Well, the darndest thing out of that is the level of engagement
Mm.
that we saw. It was a norm for folks to be doing a simple little example, but there's like thousands of them. We were
Mm.
working with a landscaping company, and we launched this, and it was, the focus was just margin dollars per month per job, right? We
Mhm.
increased the number of lawns mowed and shrubs planted and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It came to the winter. Hillenmeyer Landscape, they're located in Lexington, Kentucky. Stephen Hillenmeyer is the 4th of now 5th generation. They're a great company. In
Mm.
any event, Stephen told me that the employees hated the snow.
Yeah.
I said, why do they hate the snow? And he said, well, Bill, you got to understand, when it snows in Lexington, it doesn't snow very often.
Mhm.
So it's kind of an emergency situation. When it snows, all hands on deck.
Mhm.
everybody's working a 24-hour shift.
Yeah.
Take care of everybody. And so it's like, oh God, it's
snow. Yep.
A year later, now everybody's starting to realize how the margins that we get on snow. And people are going, it's snowing! We can make a fortune! And it doesn't just even stop there. One of the guys, he's plowing everybody out, right? Yeah. He's driving a truck, he's plowing.
And they're making money too when it's snowing, just to be clear. So they're working 20 hours, but they're also banking too. So like the whole organization, it's a big win for everyone.
Because there's everybody shares in the wealth of the company. Everybody's cheering for the snow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Snow some more. Come on, let's get another snow day.
But what I got to tell you, Adam, it's fun recounting this, is one guy, and no one ever told him to do this. Mm-hmm. He's driving a plow, and he's finished with all his customers. He passes by a church parking lot, not plowed out. It's not a Hill and Meyer landscape customer.
Yeah.
He stops the truck. He goes up to the rectory. He rings the doorbell and says, I notice you're not plowed out. I'm with Hill and Meyer. Of course, we're the best. And, like all of our customers all plowed out. I'm sure you're concerned about your parishioners. Mm-hmm. I'll make a deal with you. I'll plow it out right now. Yeah. Right now, it can be done. Plowed out. Okay. And all I ask is you take a phone call from one of our folks at the office.
Yeah.
Well, needless to say, we got a new customer. Okay. I mean, it was just like, who does that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the answer is no one told him to do it. And it was not on any financial statement.
Wow.
But he did it. And that's the kind of, so what we're starting to understand is that tying people directly into the economics of the business, really treating them like a partner in the business. Yeah. And there's lots of words of music associated with that. But you talk about employee engagement. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the G-12, those 12 questions, you will not see the word customer or the word profits anywhere. And it's not Gallup. It's not Gallup. Okay. It's all of the employee engagement tools. Yeah. I mean, check for yourself. We checked the Harvard Business Review. And I'm an alum, so I can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there have been 243 articles on employee engagement at Harvard Business Review when I checked it. So this is about like a year ago.
Yeah.
How many of them mention profits or customers? None.
Wow.
None. So so it's not. And I'm not suggesting anybody's doing anything bad.
Sure.
I'm just suggesting that people just haven't used this mind frame that says, wait a minute. It's like helicopter parenting, right? Helicopter parents, right? You're going to do everything for the kids.
Yep.
You kill them as a result, but you're well intended. Okay, that's sort of the way we've approached employee engagement. We haven't treated them as adults, and as a result, we've actually got hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, it caught me a little. I mean, this is
have to, Bill. Yeah. And one of the things that I like to do for our audience, and obviously, there's only so much you can do in a a podcast episode, right? But I do like my audience to walk away with some tools. So if they're thinking about and even just the name of this, right? You can't just buy another raise, another this or that. That doesn't guarantee employee engagement. That doesn't guarantee even the kind of what the story you just shared a moment ago about the gentleman walking up to the church and knocking. If you'd given that guy another $1 raise or $2 raise per hour, would he have done that extra? Probably not. It doesn't mean he wasn't kind of satisfied at where he was at. Would he have appreciated it? Maybe, but would he have gone that extra step? Probably not. There's a whole lot more behind that caused that individual to do that. But that being said, what are some tools or some things that the employers that are watching this can start thinking about as they start refiguring out where they fit in this world of employee engagement?
Really good. One of the things that I would suggest, and it's readily available we write an article for Inc. every other week.
Yeah.
a recent one was why you can't buy employee engagement.
Mm-hmm.
If you either read that article or you read an article about 3 years ago, where we had a portion of the research already done, okay? I believe the title of the second article is A Key Strategy to Double Your Profitable Growth. Either one of those, it may sound like I'm pitching an article. That's not really my point. Either one of those articles will have a link in it. And that link is to the research. And if you click on that link, you can see where you stand on customer engagement, on economic understanding, on transparency, compensation, and participation. And just knowing where you stand overall and by component, chances are that'll be a pretty useful tool for you to figure out where you might go to kind of get started on this. I'm like born again as it relates to customers, because I was like nothing on customers for, I don't know, 15 years. And then I got hit over the head in 2008 with the crisis we went through there.
Right.
So there's a different article. Again, this one's an Inc. article too. And that article is, what are your customers thinking? You'll never know unless you ask them. Now, again, it may sound like I'm sending read an article. That's not my point. In that article, it will lay out some ways in which you might reach out to customers, especially most profitable customers, and it'll give you. It's just 3 or 4 questions, but we've used them enough that we know it works. With One Week Bath, where I'm a 30% owner, where I'm starting to invest in companies that I'm working with, we use this all the time. A little footnote on that one. So we're speaking with customers and asking 2 things. One is the NPS question: would they recommend us? And number 2 is why. Adam, this like really happened. Thank God Carson is the individual in marketing that drives the bus on that. So we're contacting customers. We install baths. That's what we, well, a little bit on kitchens, but mostly baths. And so she's speaking with a woman where we installed the bath 5 years ago. Needless to say, there's no warranty after 5 years. Okay. And she says, well, we're always looking to improve. We want to get input from our customers. Start by asking, just given the work we've done in the past, would you be willing to recommend us to a friend or colleague? And the woman on the other end of the set, just a nasty woman, I'm sure, just nasty. Okay? She says, hell no. If it would have been me, I would have responded badly, but Carson's better. She says, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. Why is that? And the woman says, do you know the valve still leaks? I mean, it's 5 years later, right? But no, she's better than me. She said, oh, that's a shame. Geez, well, I see that one of our guys is going to be in your neighborhood next week. Could we come by and fix that? And the woman says, what are you going to charge me for that? And Chris says, we're not going to charge you anything. I mean, you're a customer. The faucet leaks. We want to fix it. Yeah. Now all of a sudden she goes, really? and Chris says, yeah, really. Okay. So what would be a good day? And let's schedule it right now. Yeah. Do you know how many referrals we have gotten from that nasty woman? Wow. And so this is where the second thing I mentioned about asking customers, the tool in there, we've found that is just a machine, not only getting good market intelligence, but your repeat and referral revenue are going to go up. Or you're the only one it doesn't work for. I mean, it's one of the two. So that would be a pretty good tool. I'm trying to think if there might be anything else that would be sort of quick. Something that, especially for many of you, that many of your guests, is like planning season right now. There are some tools that were contained in an article we just got through writing that was basically how to plan profitably. Not how to plan for profits, but how the process of planning can be profitable. There's a few good suggestions in that. The one that I think is most applicable is, a lot of folks are like me, they're problem solvers, especially if they're in a management role. Like, where's the problem? And fix it, right?
Yeah.
They don't spend enough time on where is it going well. So one of the things that we found is, if you look at your customers and sort them by size and profitability, now spend some time thinking about, why are these customers that are most profitable, why are they most profitable? What's the nature of that? And then sort of, get guided to, so we should turn our guns towards the area that we get the most game out of, or whatever analogy works for you. So that idea of finding, it's not just finding the folks though,
right?
It's getting an understanding of why are you more profitable. And there's some of the process and tools associated with that are located in that most recent article. But frankly, we've written about 90 articles for Forbes and 50 articles for Inc. So if you search on my name on either of those publications, there are a variety of other, and some of them are not all that great, but a few of them have some insights. But those two, I think, or those three, I guess, I think would be really useful.
That's great. So, well, Bill, I just have to ask, what's next? What's next for you? What's next for Economic Engagement, the company? This is our first time catching up in a long time. What's next?
Thank you very much. It's a pretty exciting time for us.
Yeah.
And it has to do with, if you think of this as a progression of 3 Harvard Business Review articles. Okay, the first one, More Than a Paycheck, and if your audience is looking for a pretty sound background of the entire concept, then that More Than a Paycheck, I think, is a really good article. John Case and I and Dennis Campbell wrote, and God knows John's really great on that. But so that was the premise. Okay, now the research, frankly, is we've gotten the data into HBR. I'm guessing, God willing, we've got 5 HBR articles. You never know whether it's going to be published or not. But I think the next one's coming out, and it's the research, all the data. Okay. The one we're now working on is, you might title it, "Oh hell, we just made a lot of money."
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, one of the things that I've recognized is most small to medium-sized companies are lousy at succession planning. But a couple of my clients from like 20 years ago turned out to be not only part of a PE rollout, but one of them in particular, Universal Engineering, Mark Israel was the president. He was not only the one of the acquired companies, he was the hub. Because, and I give the PE guys a lot of credit, what they recognized is there were a lot of best practices, one of which was economic engagement, but there are other industry specific things. Okay. So they actually maintained, the Universal Engineering became the name of all of the companies they acquired. Well, what happens is, you acquire companies at like 3 or 4 times earnings.
Yeah.
If you put 10 or 20 of them together, now they're worth 8 to 10 times earnings. If you then accelerate the earnings as a function of better managing the company, well, hell, it dawned on me this PE company was doing more for economic engagement than I've done in the last few years.
Yeah.
So there's nuance to it, but we're going from selling the proposition to buying companies.
Wow.
Finding those hub companies that we can work with, and then buying companies to wrap that around. The thing that we think we have an additional advantage on is, the scale up and the multiple being larger and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward. But we're also building a group of employees that understand the damn business. Well, That's the basis of a really sound ESOP.
Hmm.
And at least in the United States, you can take whatever taxes you might pay if your cost basis is here and you sell at here.
Yep.
The government is a pretty big partner when you sell.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you do that in the form of an ESOP,
Yeah.
your tax liability goes to zero.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want, the article I want to write in 7-8 years, so that would be like 2030, 32 then.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hell, we just made a lot of money. Okay. And it sounds hokey, but it is this, and we've got a small group of folks,
Yeah.
really great, that are bought into this. This is how we're going to change the world, Adam.
Oh, yeah.
Because our sense is if we can demonstrate, not just show the concept, not just show the research, but here's how we did it. Okay. Yep. Then what investor do you know that is not looking for a higher return? We're going to give them
sure. Yeah.
And on top of it, I think ESG is largely a marketing fraud. I know that's not woke to say, but I was never really worried about woke.
Yeah.
But underneath it, the reason it has had so much attention is I think a lot of investors want to invest in things where they at least can believe they're helping to make the world a better place. Well, how about closing the wealth gap? Would that be okay? How about better serving customers? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
How about employees that are not treated like serfs anymore? Would that be okay? There's actually a Fast Company article where we juxtapose ESG versus economic engagement. So it's that, and we're speaking with all kinds of different folks.
Yeah.
But that's what's on the horizon.
That's exciting. That's exciting. I'm curious, any specific industries you're versus others, or size of companies, or like, what does that complexion look like? What you can share. I know this is,
well, unfortunately at this stage, I'm gonna, Don Taylor is this great guy. He ran a construction company that I had the privilege of working with him 20 years ago. He's 100 times larger than he is now. But he came to mind because what you said about, what can you share? I shared the specifics of what we're doing, and I'll call it phase 3. And he said, Bill, this is really great. You should, but be careful. Don't share this with anyone. Yeah. And I said, well, if my goal was solely to make a lot of money, that's probably pretty good advice. But remember, Don, I'm interested in changing the world. Yeah. So frankly, if some other folks start cloning what I'm doing, I'm going to say hallelujah.
Absolutely. Okay? Yeah.
So at this stage, little presence that we got started in the logistics industry. Yeah. Right now, talk to me in 6 months, but with a number of folks I've worked with in high-end home remodeling, maybe pulling those guys together. There's a brilliant guy, his name is Guru, who's running clinics in the Portland area. And so I've spoken to him about this, and so we're like just kind of getting rolling. And at this stage, the other thing that's been nice is, and this I can't name because they don't want to be all that public, but there is a PE firm, happens to be Dallas-based, that has gotten in touch with me. They kind of want to play. It's unclear how that will work. And one of the problems I think with PE is they tend not to have patient money. I mean, they want to be in and out, and so it's not clear that will work. Having a few conversations with some folks in Australia and in the EU, and I'm speaking with the one of the business schools in India next Tuesday. And part of the reason that's important, Adam, is I want to make sure our paper in our article in 6 to 8 years, that it's bulletproof. And part of what I already thought through is, like, I got to be in multiple industries because that'd work in remodeling.
Yeah. You already know.
Right. And then, that'd work in North America.
That's the rigor. That's the rigor. That's what you signed up for.
Well, yes. The thing that is so great, though,
Mhm.
is the number of incredible good folks that I'm bumping into. And so one of the things really helpful about working with you and this video is I'd like to be really clear. If what I'm talking about is interesting,
Mhm.
we're adding folks all the time, and it's really simple. It's right now it's like a dozen people. Okay, they're all great, and we all are going to change the world, and we all know it.
Mhm.
I mean, the outcome is certain. We just have to figure out how to get there. But this is also an invitation to any of those dreamers out there that share this perspective, and you got to have something that you can contribute.
Of course.
But if there's somebody out there that says, I am freaking all over this, this is what I could add.
Yeah.
I'm sure, Adam, you'll provide my contact information.
That was actually going to be my next question. So if somebody's watching this and they want to follow up and just follow you in general, whether it's on social media or otherwise, like what's the best way for people to do that?
Two of them that are best, and I give my editor, Natalie, a lot of credit on this. One is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other is, and it sounds like I'm giving plugs to Inc. I do love them. But I think it's fair to say that Inc. has sort of refocused on the small to medium-sized companies. That was always their heart. They kind of went for a few years kind of in the tech space.
Yeah.
And so I say that because every other week it dawns on me there's a third. I can almost hear Natalie nagging. Yeah. So if every other week we've got an Inc. article coming out, so if you want to follow on that or search on my name. The other thing that's true is we've got about, I think it's 2,500 folks in our database, and once a month we're kind of tossing stuff out. So those three things I think would be probably the most useful.
That's great. And so we'll put, and just so you know, for all the audience listening, we'll put, the links and all that stuff in the show notes so that you can just click on it and go and connect with Bill and also check out his work. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters or engaging in an episode, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, having them share their mission, the reason behind their mission, why they do what they do, and what we can learn from that. That's the main thing. How do we learn and grow together? So if that sounds interesting or fun or exciting to you, we welcome you. Hit that subscribe button because we have many more mission-based individuals coming on the line. Bill, as always, so much fun having you back on the show. I'm excited you got me looking forward to articles that are going to happen in like 7 years. Like, come on. I'm in though, and I'm in with you. So again,
this may sound like I'm plugging you, and that's not really the purpose at all. To those folks that are listening, that have a message, have a thought, that sharing your mission is something worthwhile, that working with Adam will help do that. But the other thing I found in working with you, Adam, is you oftentimes ask me questions I haven't considered. My wife is that way. Some of the folks that are most dear to me, frankly, are most that way. So for those of you who are considering this, I would suggest that one of the utilities is that you will learn just by teaching and working with Adam. So that would be my parting shot.
That's awesome. Thanks again for coming on, Bill. Appreciate you.
All the best, my friend.